makes you a man is not the ability to make a child, but the courage to raise one. Hi guys, welcome to today's podcast. How are you? Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. We see you, we love you, we appreciate you. So on today's episode, I wanted to talk about fathers, dads, if you will, and the role that they play in their child's lives. Today was an interesting Father's Day for me. It was very bittersweet. Bitter because, or perhaps we could start with the sweet. Sweet because despite the fact that I have never had my biological father present in my life, God has sent me men, angels in the form of incredible men who have taken that role in different areas and phases of my life and have constantly been a pillar, a source of strength, a source of support, and something that I can look back and say, perhaps my biological father is not here, but there are a few people who are stepping up and taking up the role and supporting me however they can and in the best way that they know they are able to. As a young girl, it was my mom's brother. That was my maternal uncle. He always stepped up. He spoilt me incredibly at every given chance that he had, and it didn't help. It didn't help with the fact that I was named after his mother. So I was incredibly spoiled and got my way in a lot of things where he was concerned. He always gave me pocket money every now and then, even for doing, he always gave me money when I didn't even need it or didn't even know what I wanted to do with it. I remember one of my fondest memories of him is every time I was visiting at his home and he would come back from work, I would always look forward to running up to him and he would hoist me up in the air and throw me up and down a number of times, and he would catch me, and that would just give me so much joy. And as a child in that moment, I was just enjoying it. But now looking back, that's one of the most fond memories I have of that uncle of mine. And shout out to him wherever he is. And then as I grew up, of course, in the workspace, I remember another very fond memory of a man who I had never met in my entire life, but I had just finished high school and I was volunteering at the time. And the very first time I met this teacher, he was a teacher who was a senior teacher rather, and he was almost retiring. And from the very first time this man saw me, he instantly called me my daughter. And so because I didn't know the first or the last thing about being a teacher, working through the curriculum, the rules that came with the job, he constantly was a source of encouragement and would guide me through it and would share resources that he had. And he also just really stood in the gap as far as encouraging me and making me feel like, you know what, even if everybody else seems like your colleague, you have a father figure and someone who's genuinely looking out for you and rooting for you. And then it brought me in, even if I would take you a bit back into my high school years, there were a number of people who were my mom's friends, some who even dated my mom, but they would step up and show up for me in different ways and support me the best way that they knew how. And that helped really buffer me in times when I would see people's dads step up for them, show up for them in schools and in different other phases in life. And having gotten all this support, which I am deeply, deeply and incredibly grateful for, it doesn't take away the need to be able to, wanted to have known and formed a bond with my biological father. And now that story is quite complicated, and I'll be happy to share it another day once a couple of pieces to the puzzle have been filled and I can kind of figure out a few things that are still quite pending. And so I have always felt the need to want to know him, to identify with my roots, to know, so where do I truly come from? And if he was in the picture, what would be my last name? What would my other family look like? And what would have been the dynamic, even if he was not together with my mom? What would have the dynamic of me knowing him and me truly knowing my roots looked like? And so every Father's Day that comes and goes is a constant reminder that despite the fact that I would want to know and I would kind of just want to get closure on that front, perhaps he's not ready to do that. And the greatest lesson for me has been allowing healing to happen at its own pace. I have always felt the need to kind of take control in different scenarios. But I think my greatest lesson in life that has been for the better part of last year and even this year is learning to relinquish that control and just allow life to flow, and making peace with the fact that I can only control what I feel and what I know and what is within my own personal control, and everything else I just have to release and trust that it will work itself out in its own time. And I've had my seasons where I've been incredibly angry because I think to myself, why would you bring life into this earth and want nothing to do with it? Is it me? Is it me who's not worthy of love? Is it me who's not worthy to be pursued? But that is not true. And I can confidently tell you, even with this beautiful tribe that we've formed here, that he is the one missing out. He's the one missing out on all my awesomeness, if I may say so myself. Um, but also, I myself, as I've grown older and even being a parent, I have learned to humanize my parents, bring them up from that pedestal that we like to put them in, and just kind of see them as, see my mom as just a girl, and see my dad as just a boy, and believe that he kind of did what he knew best at the time that he did, and whether he chooses to do right by me in his old age before God calls him or home, or whether he sees or has that awakening long after he's gone and left this life, then that's something that I cannot control, but it's something that I need to release. I think we also take away during Father's Day from the fathers who are genuinely present and have made a conscious decision to be in their children's lives, and they step up and they provide and they wake up every morning despite the challenges that come with adulting and with life in general, and choose to be the best fathers they can be and the best dads they can be to their children. Because the common narrative, especially in today's world in 2024, is the fathers who have chosen to be absent and are not in their children's lives for one reason or another. But today, for a moment, I just want to pause and celebrate the fathers who've chosen to create a loving home for their children by loving their partners in the best way they possibly can. I want to celebrate the dads who've chosen to be present and provide for their children, however hard it may be, even in these harsh economic times. The fathers who've made a conscious effort in healing from their past traumas and choosing to be better parents, even if that was not modeled for them by their own fathers. And even though some days are hard and some days they mess up, they constantly choose to show up. And so shout out to those dads. I also want to send a special shout out to the dads who met children and chose to have bonus daughters or sons in their lives. I think it's incredible for any father really to step up. And I think probably that's where the name step parents come from, because that's a stepdad is someone who's chosen to step up and assume the role of parenting a child who no longer has their biological dad present for one reason or another. It could be because they're deceased. It could be because they just chose to not be part of their child's life, but because they partner up with an individual who has a child, and they choose to step up and love these children and provide for them in the best way possible. I just want to say, from a perspective of someone who has a child myself, loving a child who's not biologically your own requires a special kind of grace. And so for the fathers who've done that and have assumed that role so beautifully that it even takes that child a while to realize, this is not my biological dad, it's incredible to see. And so those fathers are rarely celebrated. And the fact that you not only take in a lady, but take in this life that she comes with, and you choose to love them and to provide for them and build a home and a family with them, is incredibly commendable. And so shout out to those fathers as well. And there's a special group of fathers that I want to address today, and I want to celebrate them on this Father's Day. Those fathers who, for one reason or another, you were not ready to become a parent, and whatever the situation you found yourself in was, you instantly get the news that there's a baby coming and you're going to be a father, or you're going to be a dad soon. And they say, sign me up for another package. This is not for me. Peace, I'm out. And then a few years down the line, or a few months down the line, or years later, they resurface and say, "I kwani amju jokes, see I'm here now." I think I want this package. I don't think I want the other package. And because of the time that has gone by and because of the absence felt, even though these fathers choose to resurface and come back and say, you know what, I let go of that opportunity then, but this is me now and I want to be part of it, I don't think they're accorded the amount of grace that they deserve, and rightfully so, because how can you just be MIA and then you come back and you're like, oopsie, jokes, now I'm ready. I want to celebrate those fathers. I want to celebrate them, first of all, for choosing to own their truth and own their mess and want to make things right. And if you're one of those dads and you feel like you're not celebrated enough or your efforts are not seen and they're not appreciated, allow me in this moment to affirm you and to tell you that we see you and we appreciate you. And if you're listening to this particular podcast and you're just wondering, how do I reach out? How do I do this? I just want to tell you and reassure you that there's no right or wrong way to go about it. But the first step is acknowledging that you made a mistake and you want to make things right and make small strides to try and be in your child's life. I am 31 years old, and I can tell you for a fact, it is never too late to have your biological dad in your life, especially when he comes to a point where he feels like he's ready to do it and he feels like he wants to come in. And the initial steps will be hard, and perhaps you might never get to a point of acceptance or have a full circle moment, but just the fact that you're making the bold step to want to come in and make things right is incredible, and it's never too late. And then I want to send a special shout out also, although this may sound a bit cringe, to the people who've chosen to do it alone. We don't talk enough about the fathers who've chosen to raise their children on their own. They might find themselves as single dads for one reason or another. Perhaps they had a child with someone and it was seen fit for them to be the sole primary custodian and caregiver of their child. And so they find themselves as single dads in that regard. There are those who have their partners, passed on, and they don't feel like they're ready to be able to, to remarry or have another partner, and they have chosen to raise their own children. Shout out to those dads. And then there are those dads who they've been abandoned, although the cases are few and they're isolated. There are men who have children with women, and then the lady is just like, yeah, this is not for me. I think you can take it on from here. I've carried this baby for 9 months. Have fun. And they're left. And they take in the space and they do the best that they can with what they have. And this reminds me of a story I was told by an old friend of mine. And he was telling me that he's incredibly inspired by a single dad. He's originally from Nakuru. And there was this man who was in Nakuru who had married, and they had just had their first child with his wife. And for one reason or the other, their marriage didn't work out. And this lady left her home. But when she left her home, she didn't take her child with her. She left the child behind. And this man used to do odd jobs. And this man, with the help of the few people in the society or in the community who chose to step in, raised his daughter single-handedly. And he learned everything from giving her formula to changing diapers and he did it single-handedly. And when the child was, a bit older, he would talk to the neighbor and tell them, I've put her down for her nap. Let me go and do one job and then come back and check up on her. And he did it slowly by slowly. And, before he knew it, the years had gone by and he had enrolled his child into preschool. Now, I never followed up with the story, but I would love to believe and I'd love to hope that somewhere down the line, this man managed to remarry. And even if he didn't, and perhaps up to this point, because it's almost 5 years down the line, I think even actually it's almost 10 years down the line. Um, I want to believe that, he's settled and he's still raising his daughter and he's enjoying the journey as he goes by because he was so intentional about doing it, even if he had to do it on his own. And so those are the particular dads that sometimes are overlooked during Father's Day, and we don't get to celebrate them and to acknowledge them. And even as we talk about how hard single parenting can be, especially for the moms, because the bulk of single parents are usually mothers who, because of biological reasons and because of what seems naturally proper, they are the ones who are normally left to raise children more so on their own. And this can be a very triggering day, and a day where you just feel shattered and you feel destroyed, and it's a constant reminder of how you're left on this journey on your own and you have to do it on your own. But I want to say more power to you. And even on the days when it seems hard, like today, and you're tempted to be bitter and you're tempted to just feel, sad, that's okay. But look how far you've come. Your baby could be a month old, they could be a year old, they could be 8 years old. But let this be a beautiful reminder that you have carried yourself so well and you're doing so well, and God will provide the grace that you need to be able to walk this journey. And more power to you, and shout out to you. And so as we go by this day, I just want to, as I said in the quote that I started this episode with, to reinforce the fact that it can take any man, to impregnate a woman and have a child. But it takes a lot of courage to parent and choose to father the child. And that's where dads are made. That's how dads are born. And parenting is not an easy task, especially in a society like ours where men are necessarily not encouraged to share their struggles openly, but are constantly required to be in a state of, just being strong and courageous. And that can be hard sometimes, and it can be draining. And so we just want to acknowledge on this particular day and appreciate the roles that fathers play in the lives of their children and in their homes as husbands. More often than not, they are the providers, they are the protectors. And a home with a dad is an incredible home because it's a space where you're loved, you're appreciated, you feel protected, and you're provided for. And I want to send a special message of love to the fathers who are choosing to just parent despite nursing so much trauma from their own dads. But every day, even if they slip up into certain patterns, they are constantly choosing to do right by their children and try and do better, even if they don't know what better looks like, but they just know that better means they are not going to do what their dads did, and they know that they want to do better by their children. Shout out to you. We see you, we love you, we appreciate you. Fathers are such an integral part in their children's lives, whether it's for the men or whether it's for the young boys or whether it's for young girls. In a lot of ways, they model what a man should be and what a man should treat, what relationship would look like from the perspective of a man and how they treat their women. That's what they model for the young girls. And for their boys, they model what it is, to be a man, how men show up in the society and in the community, how men should carry themselves, how men should provide, and most importantly, how men should treat their partners. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there, and even the fathers to be. We see you, we love you, and we appreciate you. I hope this episode has shed some light on some of the unique aspects of fatherhood that we rarely talk about on Father's Day. Please share this with a father that you know and with a father that you feel, is just new into this parenting thing. There's no manual. We are all just winging it. And the bottom line is we are all just trying to do right by our children and do the best that we can with what we have. I will see you on the next one. Sending you so much love and light. Bye bye.